Hello, welcome one more time, Flynn's family. Welcome to our, one of the last episodes of the year, I must say, but this is going to be so special because we wanted to give you something. We wanted to give you the gift, not just of reading, but also of knowledge, and cross with video games. It's a whole new universe. So today we have an author, teacher. He also specializes in leadership. He's also a tech speaker, right? And today with us, here is Jon Harrison. Hi.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here today. I love your topic. I love how you mix all these ideas about how you connect with people, how you connect knowledge, how you connect video games, and make something about it.
Well, thank you. I think it's an idea that not people always think about. We think about video games as a hobby, something we spend time with, entertainment. But the truth is, the skills we need to be successful in a video game look a lot like the skills we need to be successful in our school, in our life, and in other areas, even our relationships. And so what I like to do is look, how do we take those lessons in the games and apply them to our own lives, apply them to work, apply them to school, really any area that we'd like to be successful.
I guess everything started like most of people when you were young, and you still look young when you were younger, and you like certain video games and you were attached to them, and then but I feel also your perspective is very mature. So how you came up with the idea that this is a good way to approach to people?
Yeah, that's a great question. I started out playing video games at a very young age. I remember my first video game was Miss Pac-Man on one of those cocktail tables.
I love those.
Yeah, those are a lot of fun. And I was playing it in a Toyota dealership because my parents were buying a car. And so I needed something to do. And I played that. That was my first game I remember. And since then, just fell in love with the art form, with the entertainment, and played it for many years. I still play to this day. So I've got a lot of history with the video games. But about 15 years ago, I started thinking about what are ways that I can take my hobbies that I love and connect them to the work that I do. And professionally, I work teaching people how to be successful at work, how to manage your time, how to lead. And I realized there were a lot of parallels, a lot of things in common. And it was really just one morning. I was sitting there at my in my apartment before my wife and son got up. I was sitting there writing out some ideas, and I started making these connections between my favorite games and some of the things that help people be successful. And then the rest, as they say, is history.
And also one thing for us, but it's very important. You said kids, so you feel the evolution of video games between the times you were young and nowadays. Because, for example, I always said this: I'm an old soul, so I love the beats. I love to see the small squares, and I'm not too much into the right now all holograms and virtual stuff. So I'm more very old school, but I appreciate all the effort, all the work, all the marketing, since, I love and studied marketing, so that is behind this. But what's your connection between that evolution and, for example, your kid now?
Wow, that's a great question. It was something I wrestled with a lot when he was really young. Now he's in high school, but when he was really young, I was concerned about how soon do I introduce him to video games. And I introduced him pretty soon. But I started with the games I grew up with. And so I thought about games like the Mega Man series. I thought about Pac-Man. I thought about Mario. I thought about some of those early games I wanted him to start with so that he would learn. And then I let him advance to the more modern games up until now. And I still do play. I just don't have nearly as much time as I used to for a lot of the modern games. And they tend to take a lot more time, I've noticed. I don't know if you've had that experience. The great thing about Pac-Man is you can pick up and play for just a few minutes and have a good time.
Yes.
You don't need to sit down for an hour or two or three and commit a lot of time. So that was one of the things that we thought was important, to have that quick experience and enjoy it.
Well, I remember many of the computer games also that, for example, you have the levels, but you have a time, and those periods of time were less than 5 minutes. So it was frustrating when you lose, and then that's when you attach and try to do it again and again. But at the same time, if your mom calls you to leave, you just leave. I try to call my husband now, like, hey, honey, it's time to go. And he's like, no.
Well, it's a big investment now. When you think about these games, I just I completed Death Stranding 2 on the PlayStation 5 this week. And I don't want to say how many hours it was. It was more hours than there are in a work week. That's how much I spent in that game. Not all at once, but they're very engaging now. And so there's good things to learn from that. But like you also said, the basic games, when we play them and we want to try again, we want to do better, we want to do better, we want to do better, that's an important lesson for really any area of life as well.
One thing about also your book, because first of all, congratulations, I saw it in Amazon, I saw it in Barnes & Nobles, if you want to get it. It's, I think it's amazing. I like also the design it's of the book cover and also the title. So please tell the people the title and tell them why you choose it.
Okay, sure. So my new book is called If Video Games Have Taught Me Anything. And it's essentially a collection of stories where I was asking people, what have you learned about life from a video game? And so I asked people in business, I asked celebrities, I asked authors, athletes, people from all walks of life, and I took their answers, and then I turned them into lessons we can apply to our own life. And I thought that was a great way of taking these little ideas that we've learned, and it's amazing what people have learned. I mean, I just met some amazing people in that experience. And all that came about because it's actually not my first book. My first book was called Mastering the Game, and it got into business ideas. And for anyone who's not in business, it was very boring. But a lot of people came to me and said, "Oh, I like that because I've learned things from games too." And that was like, aha, there's more to it. I need to start talking to other people and hear their story.
You know, one of the first things I did in my life was trying to become an English teacher, and I did it, but I was never able to actually work on it because it crashed with my college schedule. But I wanted to specialize in kids. And something I learned is that people, no matter where they are from, they always have this idea of identify with something. So my way to teach the kids was always through the methodology that I use resources like video games, like celebrities, like whatever it was they star in Disney Channel, to just give them that idea of something they can recognize and use the words, the grammar, and everything between, but to make that connection with them. And even nowadays, I realize as an adult, we do the same because we always, but with the background of our own experiences, right? And there's people who gets frustrated about that, and there's people who learns about that, and there is people who reflects about that. So for you, is that a common path also when you see that knowledge from the people you interview?
I think that's something that like you described, I think we all do, right? A lot of learning is we'll learn an idea, but we often compare it to something else we know. And so if someone doesn't understand a certain video game, if I try to explain how it's like that game, maybe they won't understand it so much. But I feel there's a lot of lessons out there for professional sports, a lot of lessons from athletics, and I figured this was a space I haven't seen a lot of people teaching. And so I wanted to reach out to people that love video games and also share with them ways that those games have been secretly teaching them important skills. So that was my experience, is that it seemed novel to most people. There wasn't a lot of familiarity with talking about games and learning.
Because also I feel like games have their own stigma until nowadays. Maybe not like the 80s that they said, it's the devil. But even nowadays, people still have a stigma of what kids could learn through video games, or for example, violence if they are doing some military games, or if they have some violent stories as well. So do you find that challenging also before you had the idea to present the book, or when you talk to people before the presentation of the book? Yeah,
the truth is there still is a lot of people that have a negative view of video games, and not all video games are the same. Some games can be a really good use of time. Some of them can be very addictive and not provide as much value. Some of them can include some very mature or intense content. And so like movies or like books, there are many different types. But yes, we still do see that a lot with video games. A lot of people still think they're a waste of time. And really anything can be a waste of time though. I like to ask my friends who like sports, I say, well, how much do you watch sports on TV? And they'll tell me about a time they'll spend 6, 7, 8 hours. They'll spend the whole weekend in front of the TV watching sports games. I say, well, that's like me with video games. I don't watch sports, but I like to play. And so it can be about making sure we make good choices, that we are intentional with what we choose. If we don't like something or there's material in it that we don't agree with, that's a chance to challenge our thinking and maybe find something that does work for us. But it's true, there still is a negative stereotype we see right now.
Yeah, and I feel, well, as you said, negative stereotypes could be about anything. As a teenager, I remember what scared my mom the most is the books I picked to read. Or, for example, even when I was a young adult, I moved to Argentina to live by myself. And talking about books with a lady I used to live with, I told her, I want to pick up a Dan Brown Da Vinci Code. And she got so, upset. Like, well, I know we're both Catholic, but, it's not that I'm going to change my point of view of my religion, my faith, but those things happen. And so, for example, nowadays you have that conversation as a father with other parents who have that point of view of negativity?
I do. I often have other parents will ask me, is it okay? How much time? A lot of people are concerned about screen time, and rightfully so. But it's something we didn't grow up with, so it's difficult. We're all trying to find our way. I can't look to my parents and say, Mom, Dad, what did you do when I wanted to be on my iPhone for 7 hours a day, right? There was no iPhone when I was young. Mm-hmm. And so for parents, it's a challenge. But I think all of us, it's about moderation. We can look at research. Research says that more than 3 hours a day is probably too much. But that's true with almost anything. But not all screen time is the same. Again, if we're intentional about it, if we're learning things, if we're making progress, if we are able to take a moment and say, okay, that's enough for today. I'm going to stop and walk away. It's an opportunity for us to grow character. It's a chance to grow good habits that will serve us really in any area of life. And so the best thing I would always tell anyone who asks me, especially the parents, is as a parent, be involved. Be there with your kids. Play with them. Learn the games. Even if you're not a gamer, learn the games. Watch, ask questions, be involved. It's a great way to connect with them, a great way to build that time. And if you are a gamer, do what I did. Introduce your children to the games you loved and share memories and share experiences. And it can really be a great tool for the family to bond. Even my wife, who doesn't play a lot, she'll have conversations with us. And it's funny because she grew up, their family actually had a small arcade where people would rent a space and would be able to play Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis games.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and so she knows it, but for her it's not the hobby she gravitates towards. But she's part of it still when we play together. And so, maybe we could do it more, but but that's the thing as a parent. It's so good to be involved and be a part of it.
And also for the people who is getting to know you now, how was your experience with TED? Like being a speaker, how you chose your topic, and what are the challenges of being in front of that kind of audience? Because I know that not just from US, from around the world, I have seen so many types of conversations, and it's so diverse. So to choose the right topic is also something I really amazes me, like how these people can know to connect with this audience at the right time, the right moment, with this target,
Yeah. So my story of how I ended up doing a TED Talk is really kind of funny. I will take you back to before the talk started. That's when I was working on a blog, back when those were a thing. We do a little less of that now. But I was writing about video games and life lessons, and I had worked on my website for about a year, and I was writing every week. I was releasing something, and I started thinking, if I was ever asked to do a TED Talk, what would it be about? And so I remember writing a blog post about that, what would I talk about? And so I was kind of, thinking about it before it happened. And then I was put in touch with someone who was doing outreach for the area where I live. They were having a TED Talk in the same city. And someone had dropped out. And they said, we have a space for you, but it's in 10 days. Can you be ready?
Oh.
So I was given 10 days to come up with a structured talk that was supposed to be 18 minutes or less. and I was being put on a stage in front of a few hundred people, 500 or 600 people in the audience, and then it was going to be posted online for thousands, or really the whole world to see. And I had 10 days. The good news is, thank God, I had already prepared without realizing it by saying if I would give a talk, here's what it would be about. And that was ready to go. So first thing I did is I took that off the internet because I didn't want anyone to know what I was going to say yet.
Yeah.
And so then I took it down and I started working on a script from there. But in my background, I do a lot of speaking anyways. So for me, it was a very natural, easy transition. But I would say to anyone, if you're young and you're starting out, one of the best things you can do is learn how to speak, learn how to communicate effectively, learn how to share your ideas. And the best way to do that is through practice. And speech and debate is a great way to do it. There's Toastmaster clubs you can join, anything part of your school's presentations. Being able to communicate is a great skill to have and will help you really in any area of life. So that's how that ended up happening. It's kind of all came together really fast. But when you're ready and an opportunity presents itself, you jump at it.
And did you get nervous? Like, were you a little, I don't know, there's people who gets very, very nervous. Generally, what I like to do personally every time I have to be on a stage, and I miss to be on a stage, speaking, is a lot to see how the audience is reacting even before the people who was before me and see what's the mood. Because I used to do, for example, be a speaker for universities about digital marketing, but it was always during workshops where you have generally people in suits, on ties, wearing, it was basically seeing a bunch of Bill Gates and me. And I tried to make it fun. It was more like a stand-up show at the end.
Yeah.
But that was my method, because I see the reaction of the kids, right? So do you have any tools that you can share with people? Yeah,
sure. First of all, it's very natural to be nervous. I still get nervous. I do it all the time. It's part of what I do professionally. In fact, one of the things I do in my current job is I run the new employee orientation. So every 2 weeks, I have 40 to 60 people that I'm in front of, and I have to talk for 3.5 hours and welcome them. And even before that, there's always going to be a little nervousness. But what's amazing is that nervousness and excitement are a lot alike. Yeah. The body language, the way your body interprets it, the feelings that you have. The biggest difference between being nervous and being excited is having a smile. So if you remember just to smile, you might feel a little better, but the people around you will have no clue you're nervous. They just think you're really excited. So that's one thing I do. And then the other thing I always do is I remember that the people out there listening want you to succeed. If you're standing up there and giving a presentation, if you're giving a talk, if it's for something in school, if it's a business presentation, people want you to do well. They're hoping you do well. No one wants to see someone get up and fail miserably. And so when you remember that people want you to do well, you can then focus on how do I help them. It's not about how I look. It's about how do I help the person listening.
Yes.
And if that's your focus, that goes a long way to help ease the nerves and make sure you're able to give a message that, in the end, is helpful to other people.
And something very important you said, it's, everything you just said for me means empathy. Mm-hmm. So empathy is also part of your book and it's part of your talks. What empathy means to you?
Empathy is an interesting word. It is hard to define, right? I think we understand it. There's sympathy, right? Mm-hmm. Which is when we have an idea that someone might be sad, or we say, oh, wow, that's unfortunate. I'm sorry that bad thing happened to them, but we don't really feel anything. Empathy is when we have something inside of us that connects with another person's experience. We can feel empathy in movies, when you watch a movie and maybe there's an emotion there. We can feel empathy in video games that have stories and plots that allow us to understand what it's like to be someone different. But when I wrote it and I was writing about empathy, I think what I really wanted to say was compassion, which is taking empathy and turning it into helping others, right? Mm-hmm. So if I know someone is having a hard time, I can feel bad about that. Oh my goodness, my friend's got this bad experience. They had a dog that they loved that passed away. I'm so sad for them. And then I can feel sad all the time. And that doesn't help them, and it doesn't help me. What I can do, though, is I can be a good friend. I can say, you know what? I'm here to listen. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry about what happened, but whatever you need to say, I'm here for you. And if you say that to someone, you're then trying to help. And that is really the goal that we would like to have, is when we have interactions with others, that it's not just about how do I tell a better story, how do I try to look smart. It's about how do I connect. And the way we connect as people is by understanding and listening more and talking a little less, which I'm doing really bad, doing a lot of talking right now, right? But it really is about that listening experience. And so that's why I say games can teach us empathy. They can help us see other perspectives, but they also give us a big question, which is what if? What if this happened to me? What would I do? What if I tried helping this person a different way? What if I tried listening? What if I invited them to go along with me to an arcade to have some fun, right? Yes. These are things we can do.
I feel like, for example, nowadays that I've been here for over a year doing the interviews, connecting with the people of the community, how they connect with the stories that are behind, because after so many years of the video game industry has released so many characters, so many stories, so many sub-universe in between categories. So, and people know like the whole story or plot of a character. Mm-hmm. They know the past, they know the now, and they try to be there for the future. So that's the way I realize they connect, and they feel empathy for others who are in the same way, right? So what do you think is good, and maybe like a balance for these people to say, okay, this is my way to be part of a community without getting the point of obsession also, because we also try to teach our community that everything has to be a balance.
Yeah. That balance is such a great way to think about it, right? It's wonderful to have hobbies. It's wonderful to have, I love video games, right? But if that ability to enjoy those games gets in the way of me doing my job or my work, I have a problem. If that gets in the way of me spending time with my son in a meaningful way, or not being there for my wife, not being there for my friends, if it means that I don't actually get to experience things in person in real life, then I'm actually shortchanging myself, right? And so there's an important balance to have there. Games are great, but at the end of the day, we have our own life to live as well. One of the mottos I like to use in my book that I've been thinking about is this idea of one life, no continues. Mm-hmm. I have one life. And when you're playing an arcade game, if you're down to your last chance, your last try, and you don't have the ability to continue, it used to be we'd have the coins and the quarters, right? Free play is a wonderful thing, yeah. Right? Not having to worry about the quarters is a great thing. But I remember having that one quarter and having that last chance, and I knew that as soon as my turn was done, that was it. I would have no more time to play the game. You play differently. You make decisions that are intentional.
Yes.
And I think that's a lesson we should be applying to our life, is that we only have one life. And it's great to have hobbies, but we also need to grow the other areas as well. And we can do that in communities. We can hang out with friends who enjoy games. We can have conversations about them. We can engage in developing. I see people develop beautiful artwork. We see people doing cosplays, creating these costumes. We see people doing all kinds of different activities that also add that social community element. And I think as long as we're engaging with community, something that as humans I believe we're designed to seek out, I think that's where we're able to be healthy and successful.
And successful is a word that I feel sometimes people don't understand, because your meaning of successful could be different from my meaning of successful, and also can vary through times of life. There are some people, and unfortunately, since as I said, I work in digital marketing for so long, for me it's really creepy to hear and see comments more and more often saying that successful means somebody who shows off the perfect life. And we all know there's no perfect life. We all know that behind that could be shown as perfect life, there must be a lot of work to go to a certain level and wake up like when they said, I wake up like this, right? Filter.
Right, absolutely.
But people believe that. And unfortunately, sometimes they project that on themselves and they said, I'm unsuccessful, right? And I feel like when they see the video games stories and when they see the characters, people realize that those characters, to get to the last point, the last challenge, they had to pass through a lot, and that's how they identify. But also they can get frustrated because they said, oh, I'm challenging that, like this character. So what would you tell to those people that are like struggling all the time, but they kept in the same level, to say it in a way?
Yeah. Well, you see, and that's that break point. We talk about ways that video games are like life and how we can learn things, but there are also a lot of ways that they're very different. And in fact, ironically, that was one of the favorite quotes I got from the book. I asked rapper and actor Ice-T the question, and his answer was, you don't respawn in real life. And that was a great point, is that you've got one life. If you waste it, that's it, right? We're here for one go at it. And the thing about that is, as a human being, again, like I said, I think there's that desire to have that connection and connect with other people that is an important part of us serving that function and involving others in our life. If we get wrapped up in a reality that isn't true, it's really easy to get disillusioned. When we see things online, when we see pictures, one of the things I said, one of the throwaway quotes I have is, never compare your level 1 to someone else's level 99, right? There are people out there that have been working hard to create an image that looks a certain way. They might have arrived, we like to say, people have made it, right? What does that even mean? That we look where we are and we think, oh, wow, I don't feel like that. I might want to give up. In fact, I even had early in my journey a time where I was writing and I saw someone else who was doing something similar. And my first thought is my heart sank. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they've got such a great website. They have such great content. They have a whole team behind them. I should probably just give up, right? I'm glad I didn't. By the way, that was Steve Camp of Nerd Fitness. And he's also someone quoted in my book. So he answered my question. I had a chance to interview him too. And it is such a great thing because he says one of the big lessons is we're the summary of the people we surround ourselves with. Yeah. You have to surround yourself. When you think about a video game, a role-playing game, you have to build your team.
Yes.
You think about multiplayer online games, you got to build your team. You got to surround yourself with people that you can grow together. Not to use, not to get an advantage, but rather people where you can grow and make each other better. And so when we see people claiming success out there, that's fine for them, but we have to be realistic and realize a lot of success is about me getting better at me, right? So we all have a place. We need to be a little more gracious with ourselves. We offer a lot of forgiveness to ourselves when we mess up in a game and we say, oh, it's just a game. We need to be willing to say, hey, I didn't make it today, right? Mm-hmm. And that's okay. Tomorrow's a new day, right?
Exactly. And I believe also that people who keeps judging all the time is the one who suffers the most, because we don't know the stories that are behind each other. Even though you can like the person, you cannot like the person, but we don't know the story. And actually I connect a lot what you said about that, because it reminds me right now about, when I started my blog like many years ago in my country, and I started getting invited to events. And I remember I was arriving late because of Lima traffic, And I didn't know that this makeup brand, they actually were people like camping to get the gift cards for the night before or even 2 days before, waiting still online. And I was late and still the doors for them were not open. They were inviting the first influencers and bloggers, which I won't say the brand, but I didn't like that idea because I think customers are first. But then when I arrived and I said, oh, hi, I'm blah, blah, blah. Where is the passes or how the invitation works? They just said, oh, you can pass through the people. So you can imagine all the people who were hungry, upset, waiting, all the things they have told me during my way into the store. But they didn't know that actually I've been working in that moment for like 2 years already on my brand, working with brands, talking, getting, a lot of work done behind, paying for a website and everything.
Yeah.
But I get sometimes that frustration was like projected with, maybe the brand because you were upset with them in that moment. But don't judge somebody you don't know. And actually, I feel like when we stop doing that, when we stop judging just for what you see outside, especially when it comes to our own frustration, that also happens right now a lot in social media especially. You frustrate with people you don't know because I think it's mostly because there's something going on in your life. You are actually closing your own barriers. You are putting your mind in something that you can't escape. And sometimes also that happens for your future, for your development. For example, in a school or college, as a teacher, you see that a lot in your school when you teach?
Yeah, and I work a lot with adults, so even more so when we think about being in the workplace, you see other people that are further ahead and this tendency to make those comparisons and to think, and it's kind of funny. What happens inside of us a lot of times, this is me too, so it's not just you, it's me too. Sometimes we feel entitled. We wonder, oh wow, how come, I didn't get that promotion? Or why wasn't I given that opportunity? Or why am I still where I am? And this is where I like to point to video games and say you would never play a video game that way. You would never start out a Legend of Zelda game and say, why did they lock the treasure in a chest that I have to get to? Why don't they just give it to me to begin with, right? Mm-hmm. We approach it. We say, no, there's a challenge, and I'm going to figure out what it takes to be getting to that goal. And so that's where I think, again, that mindset can help us. Like, rather than looking at others and saying, oh, wow, that's not fair, or, so good for them, what about me? That's not helpful, right? That's, in that case, we're actually choosing to be a victim. But what we can do is say, well, what can I do? How can I work and become better? How can I learn? Who can I connect with? And so when we start asking those better questions, we get better answers. And so I see it a lot in the workplace, but I don't see it a lot with video games. People just simply say, I'm going to work at it. I'm going to try to get better. I'm going to try to figure out a strategy. I'm going to look up an FAQ. I'm going to ask a friend. We get really resourceful.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes that actually is the part that I don't understand. Why can't we do it for a virtual game that is not, technically not real, but we can do it for ourselves? Lately, in the last couple of months, I have been actually having the same conversation, but about my country. I have to say, his wife is from my country, so he understands a little bit what I'm talking about. And actually, before we were starting the podcast, we were talking about what's going on. That it's always a telenovela. And one thing actually always came in my mind that's exactly what you said. What can I do to be better? It's not what the others, the governments or the societies, because everything is so fluctuated, that is what can I do for become a better citizen in this case, or what can I do for be a better person? Stop thinking too much about others, and it's more thinking if I start thinking I can be better and you start thinking you can be better, and we are part of the same community, we are going to improve our community. We are going to make things work better for everybody around us. But people don't, it's like always waiting for somebody else.
Yeah. And that's so true, right? If you want to see something change, you have to make the change. And again, in video games, we do that. We pick up the controller. You cannot play a game if you don't press start. At some point, you have to hit start. Same is true. That thing that you're wanting to do, whether it's write a book, whether it's build a project, whether it's sign up for a degree, whether it's apply for a job, whether it's start a conversation with that person you want to meet, you got to take the first step. That means hitting start. It's scary. It's intimidating. It's easier to do nothing. But we know, I would say, if video games have taught me anything, you got to hit start for something to change.
And that's something I think we might find in your book. Like when you interview these people, maybe that's a common pattern. They said it's not about the end, it's more about the journey and also the beginning. Yeah. Like the first step is always the most difficult to take.
Yeah. Getting started and staying with it, never giving up. We lose 7 times, continue 8.
Mm-hmm. Always something I like to tell people when they ask me about the interviews, it's not about the celebrities we have interviewed, it's more like what they tell you about their lives, of how they enjoy the way of being part of something. Because you will feel like when they were not enjoying it, then it's not that comes the failure, but it comes the frustration, the problems, and then the way they realize they could move forward is how they said, oh, okay, I survived, I surfed the wave, and I've been better as a person. So in short terms, what are 3 things you would like the people to keep in their minds after they read the book?
Yeah. Well, I would say every day is a new opportunity, right? As long as we have breath and we get up in the morning, that's a blessing, and that's an opportunity to make a decision, right? So we have the decision. We have to choose to hold the control or not let someone else do it for us. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say is we learn from our mistakes. Mistakes are valuable because they're information. And failure is an event, it's not a person. I am not a failure. I might have failed at something. If I pay attention, I learn from it. And so that's an important thing. And then the third one, it might sound kind of funny. It sounds a little bit like it's not a video game, but it is. And we mentioned this earlier, which is learn to be an effective communicator. Being able to express your thoughts, being able to read and comprehend ideas, and being able to share those ideas with others is so important. When you play a team video game, if you play online multiplayer games, you have to do this. It's a very natural thing. You have to be clear. You have to help people understand the information they need. But even in non-multiplayer games, understanding the story, understanding the instructions, they're a little easier now. We get a lot more reminders now. We grew up in the hard times when, the games would tell you a clue, and sometimes the clue was translated poorly, so it didn't even help you. But still, the truth is there. Being able to communicate, both listening to others and processing what they say, and being able to talk to others is a very important skill. So those would be the 3 things I would recommend.
And also, just for example, for you, one key that is important to start talking to others in this world that is more connected than ever, but it's not more connected like this.
Right. So many people would love to have a conversation with you. They really would. But you need to initiate it. And I'm talking right to the person watching this. They want to talk to you, but you have to initiate. If we just wait for others to start up those conversations, they're probably never going to happen. And you know what? Look, it's really awkward. I'm a big introvert. I would love to spend time with my books. I would love to spend time at home. I've got plenty of video games. When I retire, I will not have a shortage of things to do. But it's so important that we engage and connect and create those fulfilling connections. And they're not perfect. They're not like a dialogue tree in a video game where you have 3 or 4 responses that you can share. That would make it easier, but it would make it less fulfilling. And so there's tremendous opportunity to connect with people, and a lot of that's through that conversation. So the big tip there is just get started. It's always awkward at first, but it gets better, and you'll always be glad that you did.
And as a teacher, have you ever teach also the importance of hierarchies, how to be fluent through hierarchies? Because sometimes I feel like adults, especially the ones who have like jobs, for example, in banks. This week, I have 2 friends, one in my country, one here. Both have to talk to the vice president of the companies of banks. Which was like, wow, now vice presidents are everywhere. But they were always very frustrated, like what to do, very nervous. And I told them, both of them, the same. At the end of the day, this person wants somebody to help him with a little responsibility, go out home, maybe eat ice cream or chocolate, take out their bill, go to sleep, and be happy. So it's the same that everybody wants at the end of the day. So it's not like going to talk to a god, For me, it's like this, but I don't understand why people don't see it that way.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of self-talk, right? And that's a good thing too. That's something that intelligent people do. They talk to themselves. It's when you start answering yourself that it starts to get kind of funny. But no, just kidding. But the talk that goes through our mind can set us up to be successful or not. And your self-talk you're discussing is they're a human being. They're just like me. They have some of the same things I want. They want to do well. They want to be liked, appreciated, be connected. That's what we're looking for. And so there's that commonality, first of all. But secondly, we also have to check that self-talk and make sure it doesn't get us worked up. Because I used to do this a lot. I used to say, well, what if I stumble over my words? What if I forget what I'm going to say? What if I say something really dumb and I embarrass myself? And then what happens? My anxiety keeps going up because I say, what if? Not very helpful. And then we can go the other route. We say, oh, I have to do a good job. If I don't do a good job, you know, this will be the end of my career. If I don't get this right, I'm going to fail the class. And then we put more pressure. And then again, we're anxious. Now we're nervous. And it gets really messy. And sometimes we just give up and say it doesn't matter. And that doesn't help us either. The truth is it's always a preference. I prefer to do a good job. I prefer to have the right words. I prefer that when I say what I want to say, this person will listen to me. But if they don't, it's not the end of the world. And in the same way, whatever those things are that are in our way, those barriers, it's really like a video game, right? I would prefer to win, but if I don't, you know what? It's a game. I step away and there's other opportunities. But the key is ask yourself, what did I learn?
Exactly. And also it's not like a moment of life or death. As you said before, an event happens. It could be good, it could be bad, but it happened and then it goes away. And the key is what you have learned, what's your education, your process after what happened. And it's always for good or for bad, you will learn something.
Yeah. You know, I heard something the other day that just reminded me of, is that if you think about your own most embarrassing moment, it was, you know, my most embarrassing moment was my most embarrassing moment. I don't think anyone else remembers that it even happened. You know, for me, I'm like, oh, it's so bad. I can't believe that happened. Most people won't even remember those things that happened. And so that kind of, when we think about like the negative effect of failure, when that kind of goes away, when we realize that, you know what, people probably aren't paying that much attention to the negative stuff, it frees us up to take the chance to try. Right? And that's back to that one life, no continues. You've got one go at it, give it a try, and learn from it.
Yeah, and it's something that, as you said, you keep it just for yourself and people won't remember. As somebody who has been on stage since 2 years old, trust me, I have had so many bad things happening on stage, and I'm here to survive. And when I talk to people, seriously, they don't remember. Or they remember in a good way. That's also very important. Like, make a moment special or funny. That's the way they remember.
Yeah, you know what? We can't all take ourselves too serious. We have to be able to laugh.
Yeah, exactly. It has been such a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure for me.
Tell us, please, how can we find you in social media?
Not very much. I do have my website, which is jondharrison.com, and that's without the H, is JON.DHarrison.com. And then I have my books. I keep those up on, like you said, Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and you can find me there. So that's probably the best place to find what I have going on.
Tell, please, again, the name of your books to people.
Yeah, so we have If Video Games Have Taught Me Anything. That's my collection of over 80 interviews with celebrities and their answer to the question, what have you learned from a video game? Coloring book that. So I did 5 hand-drawn illustrations that have like short versions of those lessons. That was a side project, fun. And then it was Mastering the Game, what video games can teach us about success in life. And if you're looking for something to go along with that, just this week I released the Level 99 Journal. It's a journal, it's a guided journal, it's 99 days where each day it invites you to write down what's my main lesson, what's a side quest, and then has some wisdom for you inspired by video games for you to write your own story and to use that. So that's what's out there now.
Oh. Well, again, one more time, thank you guys. Seriously, for me this has been a wonderful gift. I also want to show it to my husband. I know he complains all the time I talk about him in every interview, so that's why I keep it low this time. But honey, I'm going to show it to you when we get home. It's just that I love that what you just said, everything you said today, I think works for entire families.
Absolutely.
So this is a great way to finish the year for Christmas.
Yeah, and again, I would invite you, parents, kids, involve your parents. The family that plays together stays together.
Yeah. Thank you guys. Have a wonderful day. Happy holidays too, and see you 2026 with more. Bye.